My name is Isabella, and for 3 years I slept in the basement of the house I built myself. Not literally, of course. I never held a hammer or drove a nail. But every brick in that house was laid with my sweat, my tears, my money earned working 16-hour days at an accounting firm that was slowly killing my soul. It was December 2021 when it all started. I had just graduated with my business degree, been engaged to Marcus for 2 years, and his mother Patricia had just been widowed. His father died of a sudden heart attack, leaving her alone in that massive house in the upscale neighborhood, a house she loved but could no longer maintain by herself. "Isabella, sweetheart," she said in that syrupy tone I learned to distrust, "how about you two move in with me? The house is huge, there's room for everyone, and I won't be so lonely." Marcus thought it was brilliant. We'd save money, help his mom, and live in a house much nicer than anything we could afford at the time. Me? I had my doubts. "But where would we stay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, there's that little room in the basement we could fix up real nice. It'll be adorable." Little room in the basement. I should have run right then. But I didn't run. Because I loved Marcus, because I wanted to save for our future together, and because deep down, I really thought it could work. How naive I was. The little room was damp, dark, and smelled like mildew even after being cleaned. The walls were exposed concrete, the ceiling too low for Marcus to stand straight, and the only window was a tiny basement window that gave us a view of people's feet walking by on the sidewalk. "It's temporary," Marcus assured me every night, holding me on that twin bed that was the only thing that fit in the space. "Just until we get on our feet." Temporary. Such a dangerous word. The routine started simple. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., go upstairs to shower in the guest bathroom, because the master bathroom was Patricia's alone, make coffee for everyone, leave the kitchen spotless, and head to work. I'd come home at 8 p.m., help make dinner, wash dishes, and retreat to my hole. At first, Patricia even pretended to be grateful. "Oh, Isabella, you're such an angel. I don't know what I'd do without you two." But things changed fast. Very fast. First came the little notes. Small things: "Isabella, dear, could you vacuum the living room today? Thank you, honey." Or, "Sweetie, we're out of dish soap. Could you pick some up?" Then came the rules. We couldn't use the living room on weekends because she had her friends over. We couldn't cook certain foods because the smell bothered her. We couldn't make noise after 9 p.m. "Mom, we pay our share of everything," Marcus tried to argue once. "Of course, honey. But it's still my house, isn't it? I'm just trying to keep the peace." Peace. For her, peace meant me becoming an unpaid housekeeper. The worst part was that Marcus didn't see it. Or pretended not to. He'd come home from work, go straight upstairs to see his mother, spend hours chatting in the living room I had cleaned, while I made dinner alone. Then he'd come downstairs, give me a distracted kiss, and sleep like a baby. I, on the other hand, lay awake listening to her footsteps upstairs, planning the next day's humiliations. Because that's what they were. Humiliations. "Isabella, dear, could you wash my clothes with yours? My machine is acting up." "Isabella, honey, could you grab a few things for me at the store? It's on your way anyway." "Isabella, sweetie, could you organize my closet? You're so much better at these things." And I did it. God forgive me, I did everything. Because I wanted her to like me. Because I thought if I proved I was a good daughter-in-law, she'd treat me like family. How stupid I was. The moment everything changed was on a Thursday in March. I was organizing the kitchen cabinets, a task she had asked me to do, when I heard her on the phone with a friend. "Oh honey, you can't imagine what I've managed. I got myself a maid who actually pays to work here. Isabella does everything, cleans, cooks, washes, irons. And she still splits the bills with me. It's better than having a slave, because at least with a slave you have to feed them properly." She laughed. Laughed at my expense. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped the sugar container I was organizing. Blood rushed to my head so fast I thought I might faint. But I didn't faint. I stood there, listening to her tell her friend how clever she was, how she'd worked out the perfect situation, how her son had chosen well, a hard-working and obedient girl. "You know how it is. That night, I tried to talk to Marcus. Babe, I'm not feeling good about this living situation. I think we should look for our own place. Not now, Bella. You know we're saving for the wedding. But your mother. My mother what? She treats you great. She's always complimenting you. Always complimenting. Right. In front of him. That night, lying on that uncomfortable mattress, listening to her TV blaring upstairs, which she kept loud because in my house I do what I want, I made a decision that would change everything. I started small. Very small. First, I stopped cleaning her bathroom. When she complained, I said I was swamped with work and didn't have time. She was annoyed but couldn't make a scene without looking ridiculous in front of Marcus. Then I stopped doing her laundry. Oh, your machine is working perfectly, Patricia. I'm sure you can handle it. Small rebellions that gave me immense satisfaction. But it wasn't enough. I needed something bigger. Something definitive. That's when I started paying attention to her papers. Patricia was careless with documents, leaving everything scattered on the living room table. Bills, bank statements, house documents. And that's how I discovered something interesting. The house wasn't fully paid off. She still owed 3 payments on a refinancing loan she'd taken out years before, probably for renovations. 3 payments of $15,000 each. $45,000 she didn't have. I found out because I saw the bank letters. Collection notices she was hiding from Marcus. She was 2 months behind and the bank was already threatening foreclosure. That's why she'd been so insistent about us moving in. It wasn't loneliness. It was financial desperation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there thinking, calculating, planning. $45,000. I had almost that much in my savings account, money I'd been putting away since high school, money I'd saved from my signing bonus, money I'd been hoarding for our future. Money that could buy me my freedom. But I needed to be smart about this. Really smart. Over the next few weeks, I became the perfect daughter-in-law again. I cleaned her bathroom with a smile. I did her laundry without being asked. I organized her entire closet and even bought her flowers just because. Marcus was thrilled. See? I knew you two would work things out. Mom keeps telling me how much she appreciates you. Oh, she appreciated me all right. She appreciated having a personal servant who paid rent. But while I was playing the perfect housewife upstairs, I was conducting research downstairs. I learned everything about foreclosure laws in our state. I researched property values in the neighborhood. I even looked up real estate attorneys. Most importantly, I found out about something called a friendly foreclosure, when someone else pays off the debt and takes ownership of the property, usually to help a family member avoid the embarrassment of a public auction. The bank didn't care who paid the debt as long as it got paid. 3 weeks into my research, Patricia made her biggest mistake yet. Marcus had gone out of town for a work conference, and she thought she could really show her true colors. I came home from work to find a list, an actual written list, of chores she expected me to complete before the weekend. Clean both upstairs bathrooms. Wash and iron my sheets. Grocery shopping, list attached. Deep clean the kitchen. Vacuum all carpets. Dust all furniture. Clean windows. At the bottom, she'd written, "Thanks for being such a help," smiley face emoji. I stared at that list for a long time. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my purse. Evidence. That night, I called my lawyer friend Sarah from college. We kept in touch over the years, and she specialized in real estate law. Sarah, hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to buy a property to prevent foreclosure, how would they go about it? Well, hypothetically, she said, and I could hear the curiosity in her voice, they'd need to contact the lender, arrange to pay off the full debt, and then the property would transfer to them. It's actually pretty straightforward. Why? Just curious about an investment opportunity. Bella, please tell me you're not thinking of doing something crazy. I wasn't doing something crazy. I was doing something brilliant. The next morning, I called the bank. I told them I was interested in purchasing the property at 1247 Maple Street before it went to foreclosure. Did they have a contact for the current owner? Actually, ma'am, we've been trying to reach Mrs. Patricia Williams for weeks. She's been unresponsive to our notices. If you're interested in purchasing the property, we can expedite the process. Perfect. I set up a meeting with the bank for the following week. Then I called Sarah again. I need you to handle a real estate transaction for me. And I need it done quietly. Bella, what are you up to? I'm buying my freedom. Chapter 2, The Perfect Trap. The next 2 weeks were the most stressful and exhilarating of my life. While Patricia continued treating me like her personal maid, now with even more audacity since Marcus was traveling frequently for work, I was secretly orchestrating the purchase of her house. Sarah handled everything beautifully. She contacted the bank, arranged for the payoff, and set up the closing. Because it was a foreclosure prevention sale, the process moved quickly. The bank was eager to avoid the mess and expense of a public auction. The best part? Everything was legal and above board. I wasn't stealing anything. I was preventing her from losing her house to foreclosure and becoming homeless. I was being helpful. I just wasn't telling her about it. During those 2 weeks, Patricia's treatment of me reached new lows. She started timing my showers, 5 minutes should be plenty, rationing the groceries I bought, that organic milk is expensive, and even had the audacity to give me a curfew. Isabella, sweetie, I think it's best if you're home by 9 on weeknights. The neighborhood watch has been concerned about too much coming and going. I was 26 years old with a college degree and a full-time job, and this woman was giving me a curfew in the house I was secretly buying. The irony was delicious. Marcus, meanwhile, was completely oblivious. He'd call me every night from his hotel rooms, and I'd listen to him tell me about his meetings while I researched property law and calculated mortgage payments. "How are things with Mom?" he'd ask. "Oh, you know. She's got her routine. I'm so glad you two are getting along. She really does love you like a daughter." Right. A daughter she charged rent and treated like the help. But I was patient. I played my part perfectly. I smiled when she handed me her dry cleaning. I nodded when she suggested I repaint the basement walls to make it more cheerful. I even thanked her when she graciously allowed me to use the washing machine for my own clothes. "You're so accommodating, Isabella," she told me one morning, watching me scrub her bathroom floor. "Marcus is lucky to have found someone so practical." Practical. That's what she called it when I cleaned up after her like an unpaid servant. "I try my best, Patricia. You know, I was thinking," she continued, examining her nails while I worked, "when you and Marcus get married, you should probably look for your own place. This house is really meant for one family, and I'm getting older. I need my space." There it was. Her long-term plan. Use me as free labor until the wedding, then kick us out once she'd gotten maximum value from my services. "That makes sense," I said, scrubbing harder. "Everyone needs their space." She smiled, pleased with herself. "I'm so glad you understand. Some women might be difficult about these things." Oh, I understood perfectly. 3 days before the closing, something beautiful happened. Patricia received another foreclosure notice, the final one before auction. I found it in the trash, where she tried to hide it, and couldn't help but smile. "Notice of foreclosure sale. This property will be sold at public auction on." The date was exactly 1 week after my closing date. She had no idea how close she was to losing everything. No idea that salvation was sitting in her basement, organizing her sock drawer. I felt like I was in a movie. The wronged heroine, secretly orchestrating the perfect revenge while the villain gloated over her own cleverness. The night before closing, Marcus called with exciting news. "Babe, guess what? I got the promotion. Regional manager, 20% raise, company car. We can start looking for houses soon." "That's amazing," I said, and I meant it. "We should celebrate when you get back." "We will. I already told Mom. She's so excited for us." I bet she was. Probably already picking out curtains for our old room once we moved out. Did she say anything else? Just that she's proud of how well we've been doing, living together and saving money. She thinks we're very mature about it. Mature. That was one word for it. Closing day arrived crisp and clear. I told Patricia I had a dentist appointment and would be back by lunch. She handed me a grocery list and reminded me to pick up her prescription. Of course, I said. Anything else? Oh, and Isabella? Could you clean the guest bathroom when you get back? I'm having the book club over tomorrow. Absolutely. I drove to Sarah's office feeling like I was floating. This was it. The moment everything changed. The closing took exactly 43 minutes. I signed papers, transferred money, and officially became the owner of 1247 Maple Street. The house where I'd been living in the basement. The house where Patricia had humiliated me daily for 3 years. Sarah handed me the keys with a grin. So, are you going to tell me what this is really about? Let's just say I'm making some changes in my living situation. Please tell me you're not planning to kick out some little old lady. Patricia Williams is 58, runs 3 miles every morning, and has been treating me like hired help while I paid her rent. She'll be fine. Sarah raised an eyebrow. This sounds like there's a story here. There is. And it's about to get very interesting. I drove home, to my home, with a wild energy coursing through my veins. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't dreading walking through that front door. Patricia was in the kitchen when I arrived, reading a magazine while eating the lunch I'd prepared before leaving. How was the dentist? She asked without looking up. Enlightening, I said. Very enlightening. I handed her the grocery bag and her prescription, then headed downstairs to my basement room. But instead of feeling trapped, I felt powerful. This was no longer her house where she graciously allowed me to live in the basement. This was my house, where she was about to become a very unwelcome guest. I spent the rest of the day acting completely normal. I cleaned her bathroom, for the last time. I made dinner. I even ironed her blouse for book club tomorrow. But that night, after she'd gone to bed, I sat in my basement room, my basement, and made plans. First, I needed to give her proper legal notice. 30 days, as required by state law. I was going to do this completely by the book. Second, I needed to tell Marcus. That conversation was going to be complicated. Third, I needed to decide exactly how I wanted to handle Patricia's inevitable meltdown when she realized what had happened. I pulled out my laptop and started typing. Notice to quit. You are hereby notified that your tenancy of the above-described premises is hereby terminated. Legal. Professional. Ironclad. I printed it out and sealed it in an envelope. Tomorrow, after her book club, I would hand it to her personally. But first, I had a phone call to make. Chapter 3, The Revelation. The next morning, Patricia was in full hostess mode for her book club. She'd spent an hour arranging flowers I'd bought, setting out cookies I'd baked, and ensuring every surface I'd cleaned was spotless. Isabella, dear, she called down the stairs, could you make sure to stay in the basement while my friends are here? I don't want too much activity upstairs. Activity. She meant she didn't want the help visible while she entertained. Of course, Patricia. Perfect. I wanted privacy for the phone call I was about to make anyway. I waited until I heard the doorbell ring and the cheerful voices of her book club arriving. Then I dialed Marcus. Hey babe, how's the conference? Good, good. Listen, I need to tell you something important. What's wrong? You sound weird. I took a deep breath. Marcus, I bought your mother's house. Silence. Long, confused silence. What do you mean you bought her house? I mean I purchased 1247 Maple Street yesterday. I'm now the legal owner of the property where we've been living. Bella, that doesn't make sense. My mom owns that house. Your mom was 3 months behind on her mortgage payments. The bank was about to foreclose. I paid off her debt and bought the house to prevent her from losing it. More silence. I could hear him breathing, trying to process what I just told him. You bought Mom's house? Without telling me? Without telling her? She was going to lose it anyway, Marcus. In a week, it would have been sold at auction. I saved her from that embarrassment. But why? Why would you do that without talking to us? This was the moment. The moment I'd been practicing for. Because for 3 years, your mother has treated me like a live-in maid while I paid her rent. She's humiliated me, used me, and made it clear that I'm not family, I'm help. So I decided to stop being her victim and start being her landlord. I could hear him struggling to find words. Bella, that's insane. You can't just buy someone's house. I can when they're in foreclosure and I'm preventing them from becoming homeless. Everything I did was legal. Legal doesn't mean it's right. What's not right, Marcus, is your mother charging me rent to live in a basement while treating me like unpaid staff. What's not right is her laughing about how she has a maid who pays to work. What's not right is you seeing all of this and doing nothing. The hurt in his voice was clear. She said that? About a maid? I heard her, Marcus. I heard her bragging to her friends about how clever she was, having me clean and cook and pay rent all at the same time. Upstairs, I could hear laughter from the book club. Patricia's voice rose above the others, probably telling some charming story about her accommodating future daughter-in-law. Bella, this is crazy. You can't just. What are you planning to do? I'm planning to give her 30 days notice to find somewhere else to live. Just like any landlord would. You want to evict my mother? I want to stop being treated like a servant in my own home. Your home? Bella, she's lived there for 20 years. And now she can find somewhere else to live. Somewhere she can afford. Somewhere she can treat people with respect. I heard him talking to someone in the background, probably explaining to a colleague why he suddenly needed privacy for a personal call. Look, he said, coming back to the phone, I'm flying home tonight. We need to figure this out. There's nothing to figure out, Marcus. I own the house now. The decision is made. We're supposed to be a team, Bella. Couples don't make decisions this big without each other. You're right. We should have been a team. But you chose your mother's side every time she disrespected me. You let her turn me into her personal servant and told me I was imagining things. I never. I didn't know it was that bad. You didn't want to know. Another long pause. I could hear the book club getting louder upstairs. They were probably discussing literature while eating cookies I'd baked and drinking coffee I'd made. What happens now? Marcus asked quietly. Now your mother gets to experience what it's like to look for housing as a single woman on a fixed income. Just like she was planning to make me do after the wedding. What do you mean? She told me herself, Marcus. This house is meant for one family, and when we get married, we should probably look for our own place because she needs her space. She said that? 3 days ago. Right after she handed me a list of chores to complete before her book club. I could hear him processing this information, finally starting to see the pattern I'd been living with for 3 years. Bella. I'm done being her victim, Marcus. And I'm done being invisible to you when she treats me badly. I'm coming home. Don't do anything until I get there. I'm giving her the notice tonight. After her friends leave and she's done pretending to be a gracious hostess. Please, just wait. I've waited 3 years. I hung up and sat in the silence of my basement. Upstairs, Patricia was holding court, probably describing her latest charity work or book recommendation while sitting in the living room I'd vacuumed this morning. In 6 hours, her world was going to change forever. I spent the afternoon listening to her book club and thinking about all the conversations that were about to happen. Marcus with his mother with her friends with their husbands. The scandal was going to be delicious. At exactly 4:30, I heard the book club ladies saying their goodbyes. Patricia was being extra gracious, probably walking them to the door and kissing cheeks. Thank you so much for coming. Same time next month. The front door closed, and I heard her footsteps in the kitchen, probably starting to clean up. This was usually when she'd call down to me to come help with the dishes. But today was different. Today, I waited. Isabella? She called. Could you come help clean up? I took the envelope from my desk, smoothed my shirt, and walked upstairs. She was loading the dishwasher, humming cheerfully. The living room still had the warm glow of afternoon sun, and everything looked perfect. Civilized. Normal. How was book club? I asked. Wonderful. We're reading Where the Crawdads Sing next month. You should join us sometime. Right. Join the book club where I'd spend 2 hours serving refreshments to women who saw me as the help. Patricia, I need to give you something. She looked up from the dishwasher, mildly curious. What is it, dear? I handed her the envelope. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened it, expecting maybe a thank you note or some sort of sweet gesture. I watched her face as she read the first line. Notice to quit. You are hereby notified that your tenancy of the above described premises is hereby terminated. The color drained from her face. She looked up at me, then back at the paper, then up at me again. What? What is this? It's your 30-day notice to vacate the premises. Isabella, I don't understand. This is my house. Actually, as of yesterday, it's my house. I purchased it from the bank to prevent foreclosure. She stared at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. That's impossible. You can't. This is my house. I've lived here for 20 years. You lived here for 20 years. Past tense. You haven't made a mortgage payment in 3 months, and the bank was about to foreclose. I paid off your debt and bought the property. The paper fluttered in her shaking hands. You can't do this. You can't just. Marcus won't let you do this. Marcus doesn't have a say in what I do with my property. She looked around the kitchen, her kitchen, where she'd ordered me around for 3 years, as if seeing it for the first time. This is insane. You're just angry about something. When Marcus gets home, we'll sort this out. Marcus is flying home tonight. He already knows. Her legs seemed to give out a little, and she sat down hard in one of the kitchen chairs. Why would you do this? I gave you a place to live. I welcomed you into my home. You gave me a basement room and treated me like hired help. You charged me rent to be your unpaid housekeeper. I never. I was just trying to keep things organized. You gave me chores lists, Patricia. Written lists. You timed my showers. You gave me a curfew. You bragged to your friends about having a maid who pays you. She flinched at that last part, realizing I'd heard her phone conversation. That was. I didn't mean. You meant every word. And now you have 30 days to find somewhere else to mean it. I turned to walk away, but her voice stopped me. Isabella, please. This house. It's all I have. It's my whole life. I turned back to look at her, sitting in that expensive kitchen chair in her designer clothes, surrounded by the beautiful home she treated like a weapon against me. You should have thought about that before you decided to treat me like I was worthless. I never said you were worthless. You didn't have to say it. You showed me every single day. Chapter 4, The Reckoning. Marcus came home at 11:30 that night, and I heard him upstairs with his mother until almost 3 a.m. Voices rising and falling, doors slamming, long periods of tense silence. I didn't go upstairs. I stayed in my basement room, my basement, in my house, and listened to my future crumble and rebuild itself simultaneously. The next morning, Marcus came down looking like he hadn't slept at all. We need to talk. I figured. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. Bella, what you did. I can't even process it. What part can't you process? The part where I saved your mother from foreclosure, or the part where I finally stood up for myself? You ambushed her. You ambushed both of us. I solved the problem. Your mother was going to lose her house anyway. At least this way, she gets 30 days to figure something out instead of being dragged out by the sheriff. But why? Why like this? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken of one of Patricia's chore lists. Because of this. And this. I scrolled to another photo. And this conversation I recorded. I played the audio from 3 weeks ago, when Patricia had been bragging to her friend about her live-in maid situation. Marcus's face went through several emotions as he listened. Surprise, embarrassment, anger. I didn't know she said things like that. Because you didn't want to know. Every time I tried to tell you how she treated me, you made excuses for her. She's my mother, Bella. She's been through a lot. And I've been through 3 years of being treated like garbage in my own home. Which, by the way, it literally is now. He stood up and started pacing in the small space. This is insane. You can't just kick my mother out of her house. It's not her house anymore. And I'm not kicking her out, I'm giving her legal notice to find alternative housing. What's the difference? The difference is that one sounds mean and the other sounds like what any landlord would do to a tenant who can't pay their bills. She's not just any tenant. She's family. No, Marcus. She made it very clear that I'm not family. I'm help. So now I'm treating this like a business relationship. Marcus sat back down, looking defeated. What do you want from me, Bella? What am I supposed to do here? I want you to understand why I did this. I want you to see that your mother has been emotionally abusing me for 3 years while you stood by and let it happen. Emotional abuse? That's a little dramatic, don't you think? I stared at him. Even now, even with the evidence right in front of him, he was minimizing what I'd been through. You know what, Marcus? You're right. Emotional abuse is dramatic. Know what else is dramatic? Buying your boyfriend's mother's house because it's the only way to stop being treated like a servant. So what happens now? You want me to choose between you and my mother? I want you to choose between right and wrong. I want you to choose between the woman you supposedly love and the woman who's been making her miserable. And if I can't? If I can't just abandon my mother? The question hung in the air between us. I realized this was the moment everything really changed. Not when I bought the house, but right now, when Marcus had to decide who he was going to be. Then I guess you've made your choice. He was quiet for a long time. Upstairs, I could hear Patricia moving around, probably packing or calling lawyers or real estate agents. She wants to fight this, he said finally. She thinks there might be a way to challenge the sale. There isn't. I've already checked. The sale was legal, the bank was properly notified, and she was in default. But she's welcome to waste money on lawyers if it makes her feel better. Bella. You know what the saddest part is, Marcus? If she had just treated me with basic human respect, none of this would have happened. If she had just acknowledged that I was a person instead of a convenience, I would have happily helped her with the mortgage payments. Would you consider? I mean, what if things changed? What if she apologized and we worked out a different arrangement? I looked at him sitting there, still hoping he could fix this without having to choose sides. Marcus, 3 days ago your mother told me I should start looking for somewhere else to live after our wedding because this house is meant for one family. She was planning to use me for free labor until the ceremony, then kick me out. And you want me to consider letting her stay? His shoulders sagged. I didn't know about that. There's a lot you didn't know. Because you didn't want to see it. Over the next week, the house became a battlefield. Patricia tried everything: tears, anger, legal threats, guilt trips. She called my parents, my friends, even my boss at work to tell them what a horrible person I was. She hired a lawyer who confirmed what I already knew: the sale was legal and binding. She tried to get Marcus to take her side officially, to help her fight me. She even offered to start paying me for housework if I'd reconsider this drastic action. Too little, too late. The worst part was watching Marcus struggle with the situation. He was caught between his loyalty to his mother and his supposed love for me, and he was handling it about as badly as possible. Can't you just, I don't know, let her rent one of the upstairs rooms? She could be a tenant instead of an owner. Marcus, would you want to live with someone who spent 3 years treating you like dirt? But she's trying to change now. She's trying to manipulate her way out of consequences. That's not the same thing. 2 weeks into Patricia's 30-day notice, something interesting happened. Marcus came home from work looking thoughtful. I talked to my sister today. Marcus's sister lived in California and rarely visited. I'd met her twice. What did she say? She said she wasn't surprised about any of this. About how Mom treated you. I waited. She said Mom did the same thing to her boyfriend in college. Made him feel unwelcome, treated him like he wasn't good enough, convinced him he was taking advantage of the family. What happened? He broke up with Sarah. Said he couldn't handle the constant criticism and passive-aggressive comments. I watched Marcus process this information. Sarah said she should have warned you, but she thought maybe Mom would be different because we were engaged. Apparently not. She also said. He hesitated. She said Mom did the same thing to Dad sometimes. Made him feel like he was lucky to be part of the family instead of recognizing that he was the family. We sat in silence for a while, both thinking about patterns and choices and the weight of realization. I'm sorry, Bella. I should have seen it. I should have protected you. It was the first real acknowledgement I'd gotten from him in 3 years. Thank you for saying that. What can I do to fix this? I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd been planning to marry, who had let his mother systematically destroy my self-worth while he played peacekeeper. I don't know if you can fix this, Marcus. This isn't just about your mother anymore. What do you mean? I mean that for 3 years, every time I came to you about how she treated me, you told me I was being too sensitive. Every time I asked for support, you asked me to be understanding. Every time I needed you to choose me, you chose keeping the peace instead. He flinched. I was trying to keep everyone happy. You can't keep everyone happy when one person is actively hurting another. When you try to stay neutral in situations like that, you're actually choosing the abuser's side. Abuser? That's what it was, Marcus. Maybe not physical abuse, but emotional abuse. And you enabled it. The truth hung between us like a wall. I could see him struggling with it, wanting to argue but finally understanding the weight of what had happened. So what are you saying? That we're over? I'm saying that I don't know if I can trust you to have my back when things get difficult. And I can't marry someone I don't trust. That night, Marcus slept in the guest room upstairs. Patricia had been staying with a friend since I'd given her the notice, unable to bear being in her house under these circumstances. For the first time in 3 years, I had the entire house to myself. I walked through every room, turning on lights, sitting in chairs I'd been discouraged from using, taking a long bath in the master bathroom. It felt surreal, like being in a hotel made of my own memories. In Patricia's room, the room that would soon be my office, I found something interesting. A journal, left behind in her hasty packing. I almost didn't read it. But curiosity got the better of me. Isabella is proving to be exactly what I hoped for. She's compliant, hardworking, and doesn't seem to have much of a backbone. Perfect daughter-in-law material. Marcus needs someone who won't challenge him too much, and she fits the bill perfectly. That entry was from 2 weeks after we'd moved in. I'm training Isabella well. She's taken over most of the household management without complaint. It's wonderful having help that pays me for the privilege. Isabella tried to assert herself today about the bathroom schedule. I shut that down quickly. It's important to establish boundaries early. Marcus asked why Isabella seems stressed lately. I told him she's probably just adjusting to adult responsibilities. He bought it completely. Men are so clueless about household dynamics. Page after page of calculated manipulation. Detailed notes about how to keep me subservient, how to manage Marcus's perceptions, how to maintain control over the household. I wasn't just being mistreated. I was being systematically broken down by someone who saw it as a project. The worst entry was from last month. Isabella is getting too comfortable. She's been speaking up more and pushing back on some of my requests. I need to remind her of her place. Maybe it's time to start talking about post-wedding living arrangements. Nothing motivates compliance like insecurity about the future. She had planned everything. Every humiliation, every put-down, every moment of making me feel small and unwelcome. I took photos of the relevant pages and sent them to Marcus. Then I sent them to Sarah, my lawyer friend. Then I sent them to my sister, who had been telling me for months that something was wrong with my living situation. The responses came quickly. Marcus, Jesus Christ, Bella. I had no idea. Sarah, this is documentation of intentional emotional abuse. You could probably get a restraining order if you wanted. My sister, I'm driving down there right now. This woman is a psychopath. The journal changed everything. It wasn't just a personality conflict or cultural difference. It was deliberate, calculated cruelty from someone who enjoyed having power over me. When Patricia came by the next day to pick up more of her belongings, I was waiting for her with the journal. You forgot something. She saw what I was holding and her face went white. You had no right to read that. You had no right to systematically abuse me for 3 years, but here we are. That's not. Those are just private thoughts. Private thoughts about how to manipulate and control me. Private thoughts about training me like a dog. Private thoughts about how clueless your son is. She tried to grab the journal, but I held it away from her. I've already documented everything. Made copies. Sent them to relevant parties. You can't use a private journal against me. I'm not using it against you legally. I'm using it to show your son exactly who you are. She stood there in the foyer of what used to be her house, looking smaller and older than I'd ever seen her. You've destroyed my family. No, Patricia. You destroyed your family. I just stopped letting you destroy me. Marcus will never forgive you for this. Maybe not. But at least now he knows the truth. She left without another word, taking her boxes and her journal and her illusions about being the victim in this situation. Marcus came home that evening looking like he'd aged 10 years. I read the journal entries. All of them? Enough of them. He sat down heavily in the kitchen, my kitchen. Bella, I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I let her do that to you. For 3 years, I let her systematically tear you down, and I convinced myself it was normal family adjustment. Yes, you did. I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it, Marcus. You can only decide what you're going to do going forward. He was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. She's my mother. I know. But what she did to you, what she planned to do, that's not okay. No, it's not. I need time to think about this. About us. About everything. Take all the time you need. But Marcus? Yeah? I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I'm not going to go back to being small and accommodating and grateful for scraps of respect. If we're going to have any kind of future together, it has to be as equals. I understand. Do you? Because for 3 years, you seem to prefer the version of me that your mother was creating. The compliant, subservient version who didn't make waves. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you saw me stand up for myself and thought it was attractive instead of problematic? He didn't have an answer for that. 2 days later, Patricia's 30 days were up. A moving truck came and took the last of her belongings to whatever apartment she'd found across town. She didn't say goodbye to me. She barely said goodbye to Marcus. But as the truck pulled away, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years, peace. The house was mine. Every room, every decision, every moment of privacy and dignity. I spent that evening sitting in the living room, my living room, reading a book and drinking wine from the good glasses that Patricia had kept locked away for special occasions. Marcus found me there when he came home from work. How does it feel? He asked. Like coming home after a very long trip. He sat down across from me, and for the first time in years, it felt like we were in the same room as equals instead of him visiting me in my basement prison. I've been thinking about what you said. About being equals. And? I think I need to learn how to do that. I've spent so long trying to keep everyone happy that I forgot how to just be honest about what's right and wrong. It's a good place to start. Would you be willing to try? To see if we can figure out how to be together in a way that's healthy? I looked at him sitting there in my living room, in my house, asking for permission to try to love me properly. I'm willing to try. But Marcus? Yeah? The next time someone treats me badly, anyone, including your mother, I need to know you'll be on my side. Not in the middle. On my side. I will be. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it causes family drama. Even if it's easier to blame me for being too sensitive. Even then. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. We had months of difficult conversations ahead of us. Therapy. Rebuilding trust. Learning how to be partners instead of him being a son first and a boyfriend second. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, that's all you need. The house Patricia lost wasn't just a house. It was the foundation of her power over both of us. Without it, she couldn't manipulate the living situation. She couldn't control the daily dynamics. She couldn't make me small. 6 months later, Marcus and I were engaged again, for real this time, as equals who chose each other freely instead of convenience and family pressure. A year later, we were married in my backyard, surrounded by friends who celebrated the woman I'd become instead of the woman I'd been trained to be. Patricia wasn't invited. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. Some people change when they lose their power over you. Others just find new ways to try to get it back. She chose the second option, sending cards with passive-aggressive messages about forgiveness and family unity. As if forgiveness meant going back to accepting abuse. I kept one of her cards as a reminder, Isabella, I hope someday you'll understand that family means accepting people as they are. She was right about family. It does mean accepting people as they are. That's exactly why I couldn't accept her. But the most beautiful part of this whole story isn't the revenge. It's not the satisfaction of watching someone who hurt me face consequences. The most beautiful part is the morning I wake up in my own house, in my own bedroom, and remember that I saved myself. I didn't wait for someone else to rescue me. I didn't hope things would magically get better. I didn't accept that being treated badly was just the price of love and family. I took control of my own life in the most literal way possible. I bought it. Every woman who's ever been made to feel small by someone who should have loved her better, this is for you. You have more power than you think. You deserve more respect than you're getting. And sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is stop waiting for permission to save yourself. The basement room where I spent 3 years sleeping is now my home office. I kept it exactly the same size, but I painted the walls a bright, cheerful yellow and installed proper lighting. Sometimes I sit in there and remember the woman who used to cry herself to sleep in that space, feeling trapped and helpless and grateful for crumbs. Then I walk upstairs to my beautiful house and remind myself that she doesn't live here anymore. I do. Epilogue, 3 years later. People always ask me if I have any regrets about what I did to Patricia. If I feel guilty about destroying her life, as she puts it in the occasional letter she still sends. The answer is simple, no. But let me tell you why, because I think it's important. 6 months after Patricia moved out, I got a call from Marcus's sister Sarah in California. She was visiting our area for work and wanted to meet for coffee. I have something to tell you, she said, stirring her latte nervously. Something I should have told you years ago. She pulled out her phone and showed me a text thread, messages between her and Patricia from right after Marcus and I got engaged the first time. She's not right for our family, one message read. Too independent. Too educated. She'll try to change him. I'm working on it, Patricia had responded. Give me time to break her down properly. She'll be manageable soon enough. What if Marcus figures out what you're doing? Marcus sees what I want him to see. Always has. I raised him to trust my judgment about people. Sarah scrolled through months of messages. Patricia describing her project of making me submissive. Asking for advice on how to isolate me from my friends. Celebrating small victories when I'd given in to her demands. She did this to my college boyfriend too, Sarah said quietly. But back then, I thought it was just mom being protective. I didn't realize it was systematic. Why are you showing me this now? Because I want you to know that what you did, buying the house, standing up to her, it wasn't just about you. You broke a pattern that's been going on for decades. She showed me more messages, these ones recent. Isabella ruined everything, Patricia had written to Sarah just last week. I can't believe she turned my own son against me. Mom, you turned him against you by trying to abuse his girlfriend, Sarah had replied. I was protecting him. She was too strong-willed. She would have controlled him. You mean she would have treated him as an equal instead of letting you control both of them? The conversation went on like that, Patricia unable to see that her definition of protection was actually manipulation and control. She's been doing this our whole lives, Sarah explained. Dad, me, you, probably other people we don't even know about. She finds people's weaknesses and exploits them to maintain her position as the center of everyone's universe. What happened with your dad? Sarah's face darkened. He started standing up to her about 5 years before he died. Setting boundaries, calling her out when she was being manipulative. She made his life hell. You think that contributed to his heart attack? I think living with constant stress and emotional manipulation doesn't exactly promote cardiovascular health. We sat in silence for a while, both thinking about the implications of what she'd shared. There's something else, Sarah said. She's been telling people you manipulated Marcus into buying the house. That you're some kind of gold digger who seduced him into betraying his family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course she is. I've been correcting the story wherever I hear it. Showing people the evidence of what really happened. But I wanted you to know what she's saying. It doesn't matter what she says. The people who matter know the truth. It matters to me. Because I should have warned you. I should have protected you like Marcus should have. That conversation changed something for me. It helped me understand that Patricia's treatment of me wasn't personal failure on my part, it was a predatory pattern she perfected over decades. A few weeks later, I got another interesting phone call. This one from Patricia's friend Helen, the woman who'd been at that book club meeting where Patricia had been playing the gracious hostess. Isabella, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from Marcus. What can I do for you, Helen? Well, I wanted to apologize. And to ask you something. Apologize for what? For not seeing what was happening. Patricia always spoke so highly of you when you weren't around, but I should have noticed that she never spoke to you the same way when you were there. I was intrigued. What do you mean? At book club, she'd go on and on about how helpful you were, how organized, how she was so lucky to have you. But then she'd ask you to clean up after us like you were. Well, like you were the help. You noticed that? Several of us noticed. We talked about it after you. After the house situation happened. Margaret said she always felt uncomfortable with how Patricia treated you, but didn't want to interfere in family dynamics. What did you want to ask me? Helen hesitated. My daughter is getting married next year. Her fiancé's mother has been difficult. Making demands, being controlling, treating my daughter like she's not good enough. I wanted to ask if you had any advice. Tell your daughter that she doesn't have to earn love by accepting mistreatment. And tell her that the earlier she sets boundaries, the easier it will be. Patricia says you were just ungrateful. That you couldn't handle normal family expectations. Helen, did Patricia ever clean up after your book club meetings? Well, no. Did she ever make lists of chores for you to complete in her house? Of course not. Then they weren't normal family expectations. They were power plays designed to put me in my place. There was a long pause. You're right. I can see that now. The hardest part wasn't the chores or the disrespect. It was the gaslighting, being told that my completely reasonable objections to being treated badly were just me being difficult. I'll talk to my daughter. Thank you for being honest with me. After I hung up, I realized something important. My story wasn't just about one woman standing up to one abusive person. It had become a catalyst for other people to examine toxic dynamics in their own families. Over the next year, I heard from several other women who'd been in similar situations. Friends of friends who'd been shown Patricia's journal entries and recognized their own experiences. Women who'd been made to feel grateful for being treated poorly by people who claimed to love them. Some of them made changes. Set boundaries with difficult in-laws. Left relationships where they weren't respected. Stopped accepting the unacceptable. Others didn't. Change is hard, and sometimes the devil you know feels safer than the uncertain freedom of standing up for yourself. But the conversations were happening. That mattered. Marcus and I went to couples therapy for 8 months after Patricia moved out. It was harder than I expected, not because we didn't love each other, but because we had to completely rebuild our relationship on a foundation of equality instead of accommodation. I think I was attracted to how accommodating you were, he admitted during one session. It made me feel like a good guy without actually having to do the work of being one. What do you mean? I mean that you made everything easy for me. You managed my mother, you handled the household stuff, you never complained about things that would have driven other women away. It was comfortable. Comfortable for you. Right. Comfortable for me. I didn't have to choose sides or set boundaries or risk conflict. You just absorbed all the difficulty. Our therapist, Dr. Martinez, nodded. Marcus, do you see how that put Isabella in an impossible position? I do now. She was protecting me from having to deal with my mother's behavior by absorbing all of it herself. And how did that serve your relationship? Marcus was quiet for a long time. It didn't. It just delayed the inevitable confrontation while making Isabella suffer unnecessarily. What would you do differently now? I'd address problems when they started instead of hoping Isabella would just adapt to them. It took months of conversations like that, but slowly, we learned how to be partners instead of him being a son who happened to have a girlfriend. The real test came when Patricia tried to reconcile. It was Christmas of our second year in the house. She called Marcus and asked if she could come over for dinner. Just to see if we can be a family again. Marcus asked me what I thought. Old Isabella would have said yes immediately, would have cooked for hours and cleaned obsessively and tried to prove that she could be gracious in victory. New Isabella had a different response. What does she want to accomplish with this dinner? She says she wants to apologize and start over. Has she apologized before? She said she's sorry that things got so out of hand. That's not an apology, Marcus. That's her being sorry about consequences, not about her actions. So what should I tell her? Tell her that if she wants to apologize, she can write a letter. A real apology that acknowledges specifically what she did wrong and how it affected me. If she can do that, we can consider a conversation. The letter never came. Instead, she sent a card that said, "I'm sorry you felt hurt by our family dynamics. I hope we can move past this unfortunate misunderstanding." Even her apology attempt was gaslighting. Marcus called her back. "Mom, Isabella didn't feel hurt by family dynamics. You systematically mistreated her for 3 years, documented it in writing, and lost your house because of it. If you can't acknowledge what actually happened, there's no point in having dinner. I can't believe you're choosing her over your own mother. I'm choosing right over wrong. There's a difference." She hung up on him. That was 2 years ago. She still sends occasional cards and messages, always positioning herself as the victim of our overreaction to her trying to help. Marcus struggles with it sometimes. He misses having a mother, even though the mother he misses was always partially an illusion. "Do you think I'm a bad son?" he asked me once. "I think you're a good man who refuses to enable bad behavior. Those aren't the same thing." But she's family. Being family doesn't give someone the right to treat you badly. It actually makes it worse when they do. We've built a good life in this house. Marcus proposed to me again, properly this time, as equals, in the living room where Patricia used to hold court. We got married in the backyard, surrounded by friends who celebrated our relationship instead of people who saw it as a political alliance. I converted Patricia's old bedroom into a proper office where I run my own bookkeeping business now. Leaving the corporate world was scary, but I learned that I'm braver than I thought I was. The basement office is where I write. Not professionally, just for me. I'm working on a book about emotional manipulation and family systems. Maybe it'll get published, maybe it won't. But writing it has helped me process everything that happened. Sometimes I get emails from women who've heard my story secondhand. They want advice, or just want to tell someone who'll understand about their own situations. Last week, I got one that made me cry. "Dear Isabella, my friend told me about what you did with your mother-in-law's house. I've been living with my boyfriend's mother for 2 years and she treats me exactly like you described. I always thought I was being too sensitive. Reading your story made me realize that I'm not crazy, she's abusive. I'm moving out next month. Thank you for showing me that I don't have to accept being treated badly just because it's family. You probably saved my life." That's when I know it was all worth it. Not just for me, but for every woman who needs to know that she has more power than she thinks. The house that Patricia lost became the foundation of my freedom. But more than that, it became proof that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is refuse to accept unacceptable treatment. I still live here, in this house I bought with my own money to save myself from a situation that was slowly killing my spirit. Every morning when I wake up in my own bedroom, in my own house, surrounded by my own choices, I remember that I didn't wait for someone else to rescue me. I rescued myself. And if you're reading this, feeling trapped in your own situation, wondering if you're being too sensitive or asking for too much, you're not. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness, especially by people who claim to love you. You have more power than you think you do. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to use it.